Welcome to today's story, Murder Among Students. In the heart of Edinburgh, a quiet city of learning, a shocking series of murders strikes the university community. Inspector Jenny Logan faces a race against time to uncover the truth hidden behind research, ambition, and betrayal. Follow along as secrets are revealed and the hunt for a dangerous killer unfolds. Chapter 1. Is Billy Marr telling the truth? Tell me again about this woman you say you killed, Billy, Logan asked. It was late on a Thursday afternoon. Inspector Jenny Logan of the Edinburgh Police was at her desk in the London Road station. Sitting opposite her was an ordinary-looking man in dirty jeans, a worn blue sweater, and a green jacket full of holes. His name was Billy Marr. "I've told you already, Inspector," Billy said, waving his finger in the air. "She's up on Calton Hill. I killed her with my own hands. I killed her and left her body in the grass. Sergeant Grant was in the corner by the door with a notebook on his lap, but it was closed. He had no pen in his hand and looked bored." "What did she look like?" he asked. Marr turned toward him. "You don't believe me, do you? You think I'm lying again." "Just because sometimes I come in here after a few drinks and tell stories that aren't true, you think this is the same. But it's not. This time it's real." He straightened up and stared at Logan. "This time I've really killed her." His breath carried the smell of alcohol. Out of the corner of her eye, Logan noticed Grant slowly shaking his head. "Well, what did she look like?" Logan asked again. "She was blonde," Billy said firmly, still keeping his eyes on Logan. "All right," she said. "And how exactly did you kill her?" "How?" Marr repeated. "Yes, how?" For a moment Billy looked lost. Then his face brightened. "Like I said, with my own hands. I put them around her neck and pressed hard." "You strangled her?" "Yes," Marr replied. "I strangled her." "Did you knock her out first?" Grant asked. "What do you mean?" Marr said. "I mean, did you hit her or knock her down before that?" Grant explained. No, Billy answered. "Why would I do that? I just strangled her." Grant said nothing more. He simply glanced at Logan. Logan leaned on her desk and ran her fingers through her short brown hair. She looked again at Billy Marr. Poor Billy. Every couple of months he came into the station with a story about some crime he claimed he had done, but never had. "All right, Billy," Logan said. "Sergeant Grant will take you downstairs and show you out." "Out?" Marr said, sounding surprised. "You're not keeping me here?" "No, Billy," Logan told him. "We're letting you go. If you really strangled someone while they were still conscious, they would fight back. You don't have a single cut or scratch on your face or hands. That's why I don't believe you killed anyone. So goodbye, off you go." Her voice carried a hint of anger. Billy wasted police time, but punishing him would waste even more. The best way was to listen, then send him away. Grant stood up, and Marr rose with him. Before leaving, Marr pointed at Logan. "You'll be sorry you let me go," he said. "I told you this time is different. I really did it." Then he walked out with Grant behind him. Logan leaned back in her chair and looked out the window. It was a cool, gray September day. Across the road, the trees in the park were already starting to turn color. Soon they would be golden brown, and the city would be ready for another Edinburgh winter. Logan hoped it would be peaceful, though she doubted it. A big city always had big problems. There was a quiet knock on the door. Grant returned. "I've got rid of Billy," he said. "Told him I don't want to see him again until after Christmas." Logan shook her head with a sad smile, her anger gone. "He's a strange one, isn't he? Just wants attention, someone to talk to. But can you imagine Billy killing anyone? Grant shook his head and was about to reply when Logan's phone rang. She picked it up. "Inspector Logan." Grant watched her eyes widen in shock. "We'll be there," she said, then put the phone down and looked at Grant. "They've found a young woman's body on Calton Hill. Blonde, dead." Grant's mouth fell open. "Find Billy Marr and bring him back here," Logan ordered. "I'll head to Calton Hill and return as soon as I can." Grant was already hurrying down the corridor as Logan grabbed her jacket and followed. Chapter 2. A Body on Calton Hill. The road up to Calton Hill runs behind the old Royal High School, a fine building that, in Logan's opinion, should have become the home of the new Scottish government. Instead, millions had been wasted on a modern building. Halfway up, Logan pulled her car over behind 2 police vehicles and an old blue Volvo. She spotted Helen Robertson, the police doctor, with a group of officers near a wall lower down the slope. Logan got out and glanced towards the Nelson Monument and the city observatory. Normally she thought the view from Calton Hill was one of the best in Edinburgh, at least when there wasn't a corpse lying on the hillside. Walking down through the long grass, Logan saw the young woman's body, lying partly on her side with her back against the wall. Robertson, who had been bending over the body, stood up as Logan arrived. Robertson, dressed in black trousers and a pale blue blouse, had dark hair. She and Logan had worked together before on several cases and always got along well. "Jenny, hello," she said, taking a deep breath. "It's not a pleasant one, I'm afraid." Logan stayed silent, studying the body and its position, waiting for Robertson to go on. A young woman, blonde, mid-20s, maybe younger. "No idea who she is. She was strangled, but not here," Robertson said. Logan looked up sharply at the mention of strangulation. "The body was moved here after death," Robertson continued. "She was also struck on the head, and her hands were tied." Logan bent closer to examine the victim. She wore a pink t-shirt and a dark blue skirt. "A sex attack?" Logan asked. "I don't think so, but I can't be certain until I've run tests," Robertson replied. "There aren't any obvious marks or injuries on the lower body." "And the time of death?" Logan asked. "I'll know more after proper tests," Robertson said, "but I'd estimate around 18 to 20 hours ago." Logan checked her watch. It was 5 o'clock. "So between 10 and midnight last night." "That sounds right," Robertson agreed. "I'll carry out the tests first thing tomorrow. If I find anything important, I'll call you." "Thanks," Logan said, touching her arm lightly in appreciation. Robertson bent again to pack her equipment into a black bag. Logan turned to the nearest officer, a tall man with sandy hair and fair skin, whom she recognized from London Road Station but did not know well. She guessed he was about her own age. "I'm Sergeant Graham, madam." He introduced himself. "Davy Graham. I discovered the body at 4:25 and reported it." "All right," Logan said. "Do we know who she is?" "Not yet," Graham answered. "No bag, no purse, no identification." "How did you come across the body?" Logan asked. "I was on a routine call. Nothing serious. Driving past, I noticed something pink down here. It looked odd, so I came to check and found her." "Anyone else around at the time?" "No one unusual," Graham said, narrowing his eyes in thought. "An old woman walking a dog, a few tourists, that was it." Tourists often visited Calton Hill for the views and the Edinburgh experience in the old observatory. Even with summer over, many still came. "Right," Logan said. "I'd like you to take charge here for now." "Yes, madam," Graham replied. "The scientists will arrive soon to examine the scene," Logan told him, pointing to the ground near the body. "Meanwhile, get more officers to search the hill. Look for anything useful, especially a bag, purse, or ID that might have been thrown away. Understood, madam. Logan glanced toward the top of the hill. Has anyone been allowed to leave since you found her? Not yet, madam. Good. Speak to everyone up there. See if anyone noticed anything. Also find out if anyone was here last night between 10 and midnight. I'll be back at London Road. Call me when you're done. She turned for one last look at the unknown girl. A chill ran through her as she thought about a young life ended for nothing. Once more a killer was loose in Edinburgh. Walking back to her car, Logan thought of Billy Marr. Had Grant managed to catch him before he got too far from the station? Could he really be the killer? Or was it only coincidence that a body turned up on Calton Hill minutes after Marr claimed he had killed someone there? Driving back, Logan wondered what Billy Marr would say now. Chapter 3. Another talk with Billy Marr. Billy Marr is as mad as a tree full of monkeys, Sergeant Grant said when Logan returned to the office. You found him then? Logan asked. He was just around the corner, in a cafe on Leith Walk. When he saw me walking past, he ran out after me shouting, "Here I am! Here I am!" Logan smiled for a moment, but then grew serious again. You've dealt with Billy more than I have, she said. Do you really think he could have murdered someone? Grant was 60 and had lived and worked in Edinburgh his whole life. Logan had partnered with him for 4 years and trusted his memory and judgment. If anyone knew useful facts about Billy Marr, it would be Grant. I've known Billy since he was a child, Grant said. He's an odd one. He was strange at school and he's stranger now. But could he kill somebody? He shook his head. I think it's very unlikely. True, the victim is a young woman, and Billy's never had normal relationships with women, but even so, he shook his head again. I'd be surprised if it was Billy. Logan hung her jacket over the back of a chair and moved toward the office door. Let's go and see him again, she said. We'll have to try to forget his regular visits here and keep an open mind. Do we know who the woman is yet? Grant asked. No, Logan replied. No ID found. She glanced out at the darkening sky. They're still searching Calton Hill, but it'll be dark soon. An hour and a half later, Logan and Grant were still with Billy Marr in a small interview room at London Road Station. Grant had taken off his tie and leaned back in his chair. Logan rested her elbows on the table, fingers clasped under her chin, watching Marr across from her. A cassette recorder sat on the table, capturing everything. Billy, Logan began. I've been patient as long as I can. I'm starting to get angry. Billy looked at her, but said nothing. You tell us you met this woman, young, blonde, and strangled her on Calton Hill in the early hours. Logan went on. That's right, Billy said, watching her closely as if unsure what she might do next. My problem is this, Logan continued. You won't say where you met her or what you talked about. You can't name her. You won't explain how you strangled someone without them fighting back and leaving scratches on your face. You say you killed her on Calton Hill, but I know she wasn't killed there. I killed her, Billy said again. I put my hands round her throat and strangled her. He sat with his hands on his knees and stared at Logan. Logan closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. Right, she said, teeth tight with anger. This interview is over, Billy. I'm holding you here tonight, and I'll want to speak to you again in the morning. Tell me the truth, or you'll be in serious trouble. She left the room with Grant following. Back in her office, Logan dropped into a chair and tossed her notebook onto the desk. Why does he do it? She asked angrily, not expecting an answer. Grant stayed standing. If you want my opinion, he said. I thought you were very patient. Logan looked up. Thanks, she said. There was a knock, and Sergeant Graham came in. We finished searching Calton Hill before dark. He reported. And? Logan asked. Nothing, I'm afraid. A few old cigarette packets and similar rubbish we've sent to the scientists, but I'd be surprised if they find anything. No one there saw anything. He laid a sheet of paper on Logan's desk. Names and addresses of people who were up there, in case you need them. Logan glanced at the list and set it aside. It was unlikely to help, but you never knew. Okay, thanks for that, she said. Graham lingered in the doorway. Is it true you've been interviewing Billy Marr about this? He asked. Yes, why? Logan replied. I happened to see him last night. Graham said. Where? Logan asked. Over on Lothian Road. There was trouble at an Indian restaurant. We were called. He was there, though not involved. What time was this? Logan asked. Around midnight. He was still there when we left at 1. Had he been there long? Grant asked. Oh, yes. One of the waiters said he'd come in early in the evening. Logan and Grant exchanged looks. If he arrived early and was still there at 1? Grant began. Then he can't be the killer. So why does he say he is? Logan said, looking at Graham and Grant. No one answered. She checked her watch and took a breath. All right, she told Graham. Send Billy home, but make sure he knows how angry I am. And if he comes in again telling tales about things he didn't do, tell him I'll... Logan paused, thinking of a suitable punishment. I'll think of something, Graham said. Chapter 4. Student Life. Claire Rutherford, age 25. She was a university student, said Logan. It was 9 o'clock on Friday morning. Logan was at her desk when Sergeant Grant came in. How do we know that? He asked. She shared a flat in Marchmont with a girl called Katie Jardine. Jardine reported her missing this morning. The Marchmont area had long been a favorite place for students, as many university buildings were just a short walk across the Meadows Park. 25 is a bit old for a student, said Grant. She was doing research, explained Logan. She finished her degree a couple of years ago and stayed on to continue in the computer science department. Well, she did until now. And Jardine? Asked Grant. She's also a research student, said Logan. It seems Rutherford was going to a concert at the Usher Hall on Tuesday evening. Jardine, who comes from Glasgow, was at her parents' house that night for her father's birthday. She returned on Wednesday afternoon, and when Rutherford still hadn't appeared by late Thursday night, she called the police. Are we sure it's Rutherford? Asked Grant. The description fits her, but we need to talk to Jardine directly. Get someone to contact the computer science department. Ask for Rutherford's home address, a photograph, details of her research supervisor, and the names of her friends. Tell them she's missing, but don't mention she might be dead. Not until we are certain. I'll meet you in the car park in 5 minutes. Marchmont Road was broad, with tall houses on either side. The flat Rutherford shared with Jardine was on the 2nd floor, bright and airy. The living room had a sofa, 2 chairs, and a TV. But as the flat was always rented to students, the furniture was simple and not stylish. When I came back Wednesday afternoon and she wasn't here, I didn't think anything of it. Jardine explained. She was short, with wild dark hair, dressed in jeans and a red sweater. But when she didn't return Wednesday night, I began to worry. We always told each other if we were staying out. She would at least have left a note. I'm sure of that. Did you try contacting her friends? Asked Logan. Yes, said Jardine. Everyone I could think of. But no one saw her at the university on Wednesday or Thursday. Any boyfriends? Asked Grant. No. Jardine shook her head, smiling faintly. It's not that men aren't interested in her. She's well liked, but she always said she didn't want to be tied down. Not yet, anyway. She's from New Zealand. Her grandparents were Scottish, that's why she came here to study. But even after living in Scotland for some time, she still hadn't decided whether to stay. "Have you checked the flat? Her room? Anything missing?" asked Logan. "Nothing I can see. All her things are here." "Do you have a photo of her?" Logan asked. "No, but there are plenty in her room. You'll find one there." "Did she ever wear a pink t-shirt and a dark blue skirt?" Jardine's hand flew to her mouth. "Yes, sometimes," she whispered. A tear slid down her face. "You've found her, haven't you?" Logan touched her arm gently. "We can't be certain yet," she said softly. "Is it all right if we look in her room?" Through her tears, Jardine nodded. Grant left to check the rest of the flat. Half an hour later, Logan and Grant sat in Logan's car on Marchmont Road. Grant held a list of Rutherford's friends, given to him by Jardine. Logan was studying a photograph Grant had found in Rutherford's room. "Her supervisor is Dr. David Balfour," Logan said. "He's in charge of much of the computer science research." She reached for her seatbelt. "He has an office at King's Buildings on West Mains Road. We'd better go see him. We'll need someone to confirm officially that the body is Rutherford's." "We can't really ask Jardine, can we?" "No," said Grant. "It would break her heart." "At least we think it would," Logan said. Grant glanced at her sharply. "I'm sure you're right," she added. "But we still need to confirm Jardine was at her parents' house on Tuesday night." "True," said Grant. One reason Logan was a strong detective was that she checked everything, even what seemed obvious. Logan looked again at the photo. "Perhaps we should give this to the newspapers and TV. Ask the public for help. We have almost nothing. We don't know where she met her killer, where she died, or why." Grant glanced at Logan. She was staring out the window, watching two boys kick a football along the pavement. He knew she had a good relationship with reporters, or at least with one, which had been useful before. Logan smiled faintly at Grant and started the car. "Let's go and see Dr. Balfour. While we drive, use your phone. Get someone to check the usher hall. Find out about Tuesday's concert, where Rutherford sat and who was near her. Maybe she met someone there." Grant pulled out his phone as Logan drove south down Marchmont Road. Chapter 5. Claire Rutherford Supervisor. King's Buildings was a group of unattractive modern blocks crowded together off West Mains Road. Dr. David Balfour's office was in the James Clerk Maxwell Building, a grey two-story block with tall, narrow windows, named after a 19th-century Scottish physicist. The computer science department was based there, and a sign on the door read, "Edinburgh Regional Computing Centre." When Logan introduced herself and Sergeant Grant, Balfour came round from behind his desk to shake hands. His movement was polite, but his face did not smile, and Logan thought his eyes looked grey, cautious and rather cool. He was older than her, with black hair that lay flat and a little greasy. He wore an old, dark brown patterned jacket and light brown trousers that looked as if they had not been cleaned for some time. "Please," he said, waving toward two chairs in front of his desk. "Sit down. How can I help?" He settled on the front edge of his desk. Grant cleared his throat. From the corner of her eye, Logan saw Grant had stepped back from the chairs and did not intend to sit. Logan decided to stay standing, too. She was as tall as Balfour, and if she sat, he would look down on her, an advantage she did not want to give him. "Thank you," she said. "I'll stand." Balfour said nothing for a moment. He looked at Grant, then back at Logan, and smiled. It was not the nervous smile most people gave when police arrived. It was an unpleasant sort of smile. Logan thought. "Dr. Balfour, I'm afraid I have some bad news," Logan said. "Oh," Balfour replied, and the smile left his face. "I understand you supervise a research student called Claire Rutherford." Balfour nodded. "We found a body on Calton Hill yesterday evening that we believe may be hers." "Oh, no!" Balfour put his hand to his mouth. "God, that's terrible! Poor Claire!" Logan watched him closely. He used the right words, but his eyes seemed to show little feeling. Perhaps that was his usual look. For a moment he appeared close to tears. Logan and Grant exchanged a quick look. "How did she die? Was she murdered?" Balfour asked. Logan met his gaze. "Yes, she was." "Oh no, how dreadful!" Balfour said, staring out the window, then lifting his head and biting his lower lip. "You supervised her research," Logan said, inviting him to speak. "Yes, I did," Balfour replied, turning back to her. His eyes were alert. "I have a number of students working on different projects. I monitor their progress, make sure they understand their tasks, and ensure they cover the right areas. And if they have problems, research or personal, they can come to me." Logan wondered whether students would confide personal troubles to someone like Balfour. He did not seem particularly warm or sympathetic. "Did she have any problems?" she asked. "Not that I am aware of," Balfour said, lifting his eyebrows. "She was very mature, very intelligent." "Was she popular?" Grant asked. "Yes, she seemed to have many friends," Balfour answered. "Any particular friend?" Grant pressed. "You mean a boyfriend?" Balfour's mouth showed no smile, and his eyes remained flat. "Not to my knowledge, no." "And how did you get on with her?" Logan asked. "Very well," Balfour said, his eyes narrowing slightly. He must have understood they were now part of a murder inquiry, and that the police might be considering everyone. "She was an excellent student. Hard-working, intelligent, yes, excellent." "And her research?" Logan continued. "What was it about?" "She was studying wireless technology, methods of operating computers and other devices without physical wires." Logan did not understand much about how computers worked, but she kept that to herself. She would learn more later. "Did you meet her outside the university?" she asked, looking directly at him. Balfour returned her stare without speaking. "I don't think that's any of your business," he said at last, quietly. "This is a murder investigation," Logan replied just as quietly. "Everything is my business. Did you meet her outside the university?" "I took her out to dinner once or twice. I do that with my research students. It helps the working relationship. But it was just dinner," Balfour said, his eyes hard. "Nothing more." "All right," Logan said calmly. "I understand Ms. Rutherford's parents are in New Zealand." "Yes," he confirmed. "The thing is," she went on, "we need someone to look at the body and confirm for us that it is her." Color drained from Balfour's face. "Her parents are not here. It would be hard to ask a friend. I'm sorry to have to ask, but we really need your help." Chapter 6. Asking for support. Balfour had not wanted to view Claire Rutherford's body, but Logan reminded him that, since no relatives were in the country and he was her supervisor, he was the best person to identify her. At last they agreed on a time for him to come to London Road Police Station. As Logan and Grant walked down the steps outside the James Clerk Maxwell building, Grant spoke. "It's hard to know what to think of him." "What do you mean?" Logan asked. "Well, he seemed friendly and willing to help, except when you asked if he met Rutherford outside the university. Though, to be fair, that reaction might be expected," said Grant. "But," Logan prompted. But his eyes, Grant said, stopping the sentence as they reached their car. Yes, his eyes, Logan agreed as she got in. She smiled slightly at Grant and started the car. You look into Balfour, his personal life, his connections with students, things like that. I'll check into his research. On the way back to the station, the car phone rang. Logan switched to speaker. Logan, she said. Jenny, it's Helen Robertson, came the voice. Hello, Helen. What do you have for me? Logan asked. Not much more, I'm afraid, Robertson said. The time of death is still about 18 to 20 hours before discovery. And yes, she was strangled. The only other injuries are a blow to the back of the head, and those from being strangled. So it wasn't a sexual attack. What was she hit with? Logan asked. Something wooden, Robertson said. Maybe just a piece of wood. You can see the square mark where it struck. I also found small wood splinters in her hair. Her clothes? Logan asked. Nothing unusual, Robertson replied. They were hers, and very ordinary. Nothing helpful in finding the killer except— Yes? Logan pressed. I found tiny pieces of orange material stuck to the back of her t-shirt and skirt. What kind of material? Logan asked. From what I can tell, it looks like roof insulation, the type used to keep houses warm in winter. I'm not sure how useful that will be. Logan paused. It suggests she was either kept somewhere that stores that kind of material, or possibly in the roof space of someone's house. After another short silence, she asked, Helen, if we find more of that material, could you match it to what was on Claire Rutherford's body? Yes, Robertson said. I could link it to the same type, though insulation like this is common. But if you locate where she was kept, I could almost certainly confirm it. That will help. Thanks for calling, Helen, Logan said, and she ended the call. It was midday when they reached London Road. Grant went to gather more on David Balfour, while Logan asked Sergeant Graham to organize a team to interview Rutherford's friends. Then she went up to her office to arrange further help. Sitting at her desk, Logan picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. Tam MacDonald, Scottish Daily News? Tam, it's Jenny, Logan said. Jenny! Tam's voice was warm. How are you? Not too good, Logan admitted. I'm calling to ask for some help. When her senior officers had first learned of her friendship with journalist Tam MacDonald, they had disliked it. They were even less pleased when the friendship grew closer. But they had to admit that it had not caused problems. In fact, just a year earlier, Tam had saved the police much time by finding an escaped prisoner. What's wrong, Jenny? Tam asked. You don't sound yourself. Normally, he joked when the police asked for help, but he recognized from her tone that this was serious. I'm sure I don't, Logan said. I'm working on the Calton Hill case. The real problem is lack of information. We think we've identified the victim, but— Logan ran her fingers through her hair. It's just taking too long to learn anything else. She's been dead for 36 hours and her name is about all we've got. That doesn't sound like the Jenny Logan I know, Tom said. You're not usually so down. Tell me what I can do. And afterwards, I'll take you out tonight to cheer you up. The next day, Claire Rutherford's photo was on the front page of the Scottish Daily News. Tam also had contacts in television, so the picture appeared on several news broadcasts. The public were asked to call London Road Police if they had seen her on Tuesday evening, especially at the Usher Hall concert or between there and Marchmont afterwards. Over the weekend, a team of officers answered calls. Logan and Grant followed up on the most promising ones, but they made no progress toward catching the killer. Then, on Sunday evening, another person went missing. Chapter 7, Another Student Missing. "Frances Stewart," said Sergeant Grant, reading from his notebook. "Her friends call her Fran. She's 25, a university student. She rents a room in a flat in the new town, Drummond Place. The landlady, Mrs. Dalwhinnie, phoned just a short while ago. Fran went to a party last night and hasn't come back. The party was at the home of one of her lecturers. She may have just met someone there and gone back with him." Logan suggested. "I mentioned that to Mrs. Dalwhinnie." Grant replied with a small smile. "And she gave me a long speech about what's wrong with young people today. She has a very loud voice and strong views about right and wrong." Logan smiled. "According to her," Grant continued, "Fran Stewart is the perfect young woman. Her parents are friends of Mrs. Dalwhinnie, and they both go to church every Sunday night. That's why she's certain Fran is missing." Grant put on a different voice, clearly copying Mrs. Dalwhinnie. "My Fran would never stay out on a Sunday evening without telling me." Logan smiled again and got to her feet. "We'd better go and talk to her." "I thought you'd say that," said Grant. "She's waiting for us." The new town lies just north of Prince's Street. Despite being more than 200 years old, it is still called the New Town. It is one of the most beautiful parts of Edinburgh, with broad streets, big squares, and elegant houses around private gardens. Mrs. Dalwhinnie's flat was inside one of these large houses. Mrs. Dalwhinnie was a big woman in her late 50s. She wore a grey dress and a scarf of grey, pink, and blue. Her shoulder-length hair was grey but attractive, and she had half-moon glasses perched on the end of her large nose. "I hope you're not going to repeat the suggestion your sergeant made over the phone about Fran's behavior," she said in her loud voice. "Just because some young people behave badly doesn't mean they all do." "Of course, Mrs. Dalwhinnie," Logan replied. Sergeant Grant didn't mean Ms. Stewart would behave improperly. He was only considering possible explanations for her disappearance. They sat in the living room of the flat in Drummond Place. The room was tastefully decorated, with expensive, old-style furniture, a piano in one corner, and a large desk covered with papers in another. "You told Sergeant Grant that Ms. Stewart went to a party last night," Logan said. "Yes," Mrs. Dalwhinnie answered. "She went with friends from the university. It was at the home of Kenneth Henderson. He's her research supervisor. She's not just a student, you see. She's a research assistant. Very clever. Cleverer than her supervisor, if you ask me." Logan smiled. "Where was the party?" she asked. "Hope Terrace," Mrs. Dalwhinnie said, handing Logan a piece of paper. "I wrote the address down for you." "Thank you," Logan said, taking it. "What is she researching?" "Something with computers," said Mrs. Dalwhinnie. "I don't know much about it." Logan and Grant exchanged a glance. "Has she ever mentioned someone called David Balfour, Dr. David Balfour?" Grant asked. Mrs. Dalwhinnie thought for a moment. "I don't think so," she said slowly. "But it's possible. We don't talk much about her work. I don't really understand it." Logan was silent, considering how unusual it was that both Rutherford and Stewart were working in similar areas. Could they have been part of the same research group? "Did she know Claire Rutherford?" Grant asked. "You mean the girl found on Calton Hill?" "Yes," said Grant. "No," Mrs. Dalwhinnie said. "Of course we discussed it. Fran knew who she was, but she didn't actually know her." Grant had no further questions, so he looked at Logan. "How did Ms. Stewart get to the party?" Logan asked. "She walked," Mrs. Dalwhinnie said, "even though a young woman had just been murdered in the city." Logan asked. Mrs. Dalwhinnie straightened her back. "Inspector, we can't lock ourselves away. We can't let a few criminals stop us living our lives. Fran always walked everywhere in Edinburgh. That's one of the nice things here. Even though it's a city, it's small enough to walk almost everywhere. Logan agreed, but said nothing. Instead, she asked, and would she have walked home after the party? Of course. Even if it was very late? Logan asked. Yes, Mrs. Dalwhinnie said, her eyes turning to the window instead of Logan. We always believed Edinburgh's streets were safer than other cities. I just hope we were right. Her voice was less confident than before. Before leaving, Logan asked for a photograph of Fran Stewart and promised they would do everything possible to find her. Outside on the pavement, Logan checked her watch. It was already 7:30. Let's go see Kenneth Henderson, she said. Then we might as well head home. Chapter 8. The Party at Hope Terrace. On Sunday evening, the roads across town to Hope Terrace were almost empty. A cold east wind had begun to blow, and most people stayed indoors where it was warm. Hope Terrace was in the Marchmont district, but very different from the street where Claire Rutherford had lived. These houses belonged to the wealthy, not to students. You can almost smell the money, said Grant, sniffing as he pressed the doorbell. Kenneth Henderson opened the door. He wore a pale blue denim shirt, dark jeans, and a light brown leather belt. His blue eyes were bright, his dark hair was long and brushed back, and he was clearly aware of his own good looks. He was in his early 30s and handsome. He opened the door wide, glanced at Logan, then at Grant, and back to Logan. Kenneth Henderson? Logan asked. Yes, Henderson replied. Inspector Logan and Sergeant Grant. She introduced them. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Of course, come in, please, Henderson said cheerfully. They walked through a large, square hallway into a bright room with a wooden floor and matching light furniture. The chairs and sofa had bright blue and yellow covers. Logan noticed a photo on a table. Henderson with an attractive young woman, their arms around each other, both laughing. Henderson motioned toward the chairs. Please sit, he said, lowering himself into an armchair and fixing his gaze on Logan. What's this about? You had a party last night? Logan asked. Yes, Henderson said. Oh, I hope the neighbors aren't complaining about the noise again. Not that I know of, Logan said. But one of your guests hasn't been home since. Fran Stewart. Fran! Henderson exclaimed. Yes, she was here. She left fairly early, about 1 o'clock. I remember because I checked the time when she said goodbye. But nobody else left until around 4. He still seemed relaxed. Did you know Claire Rutherford? Logan asked suddenly. Oh, God! Henderson leaned forward. You don't think the same thing has happened to Fran? We're keeping an open mind, Logan replied, watching him closely. But we're treating it seriously. Yes, I understand, Henderson said, settling back again. So, Logan repeated, did you know Claire Rutherford? Well, I knew who she was, but we had nothing to do with each other, either in work or outside it. Henderson said with a wide smile. Who else came to your party? Logan asked. People from the university, he answered. Students, lecturers, David Belfour, Grant asked. Yes, David came for a while, Henderson said with another smile. But he isn't really the partying type. He probably left early. What do you mean, probably? Grant asked. Henderson glanced at Grant. Grant, 60 years old, with thick black hair, a heavy moustache, and his usual old blue jacket and grey trousers, did not look much like a party-goer himself. Well, I don't track when guests arrive or leave, Henderson said. Some people just slip out without saying goodbye, and sometimes I'm hard to find. He raised his eyebrows at Logan and smiled again. I sometimes end up in the bedroom. Logan stared back without smiling. She was attractive and aware of it. But in her job it was not always an advantage. Too often people didn't take her seriously. She disliked that. "Your girlfriend?" Logan asked, pointing to the photograph. "Ex-girlfriend," Henderson replied, stretching back with his hands behind his head. Still looking at Logan, he added, "The position's free at the moment. A great chance for the right woman." "That sounds like a difficult job to fill," Logan said sharply. Grant glanced at her. Logan rarely lost her temper, even with awkward people, but there could always be a first time. Henderson laughed, though he looked slightly uneasy. "Perhaps you could give Sergeant Grant a list of everyone who came," Logan said. She stood up and began studying the books and pictures around the room, her lips pressed tight. On a table she found 3 more photos, Henderson with 3 different young women. Clearly the position of girlfriend hadn't been difficult to fill, though Logan thought he seemed far too pleased with himself. She warned herself silently not to let personal dislike affect her judgment. She heard Henderson finishing the list of names. Mrs. Stewart was a research assistant. What was she like? Logan asked, looking down at him. "Hard-working," Henderson said thoughtfully. "Hard-working, but not much fun. A little too serious, really." Then he smiled at Logan. "I invited her because I work with her, but I didn't think she'd actually come. She needs someone to teach her how to enjoy life." Logan stayed silent. She placed the photos carefully back on the table beside him. "Thank you for your time," she said. "We'll return if this turns into a murder inquiry." Neither Logan nor Grant spoke on the way back to London Road Station. When they arrived, it was nearly 9 o'clock. As Logan switched off the engine, she asked, "What have you learned about David Balfour?" "Only that he has no criminal record," Grant said. "But I've got a cousin at the university. I'm meeting him for a drink in half an hour." "Ask him about Henderson, too," Logan said. Chapter 9. Another talk with David Balfour. Monday began badly for Logan and quickly got worse. Her kettle broke while making breakfast, so she couldn't have tea. Then she realized her video recorder had been set wrong and had missed a program she wanted. Things grew even worse when she arrived at London Road Police Station and was told Francis Stewart had been found dead near Craigmillar Park Golf Course. As they drove there, Grant told Logan what he had learned about Balfour and Henderson. Apparently, Balfour's position at the university is under threat. They want to remove him, but must be careful. "Why's that?" Logan asked. "They say he isn't doing his job. He teaches fine and gets students through exams, but universities now expect staff to bring in money through research, especially in computer science, since new technology brings profit. And Balfour isn't earning money." "No," said Grant, "none at all. So why do they need to be cautious?" Logan asked. "His wife died last year after a long illness," Grant explained. "Ah," Logan said, wondering if that explained his odd manner and unwashed clothes. "People think his poor work is because of that," Grant added. "I see," Logan replied. "That makes it difficult. What about Henderson?" "He's the star of the department," said Grant. Logan made a noise to show she didn't agree. "He's well liked by students and staff, gets good results, and most importantly, brings in large sums for the university." Grant paused, then smiled. But Logan smiled back, pleased to hear a but about Henderson. "Sir, some people doubt whether all the money from Henderson's work actually goes to the university." "You mean the big house?" Logan suggested. "Exactly. Few could afford Hope Terrace on a lecturer's salary and research share." "What's a research share?" Logan asked. If a researcher develops something the university sells, the university keeps a third, the department a third, and the last third goes to the researcher. I see, Logan said. Some believe Henderson earns too much, keeping some back. And Grant paused again. Some think he hasn't been honest about his research. How so? Logan asked. Last year a program was sold to an American company. There was a dispute whether Henderson created it or one of his students did. People say he stole work from his students. Logan was silent for several minutes before speaking. We must find out more about what these girls were researching. It may matter. We also need to know where Balfour was when Claire Rutherford was killed, and what time he left Henderson's party. We didn't ask before, but then Frances Stewart was still alive. Right, Grant said. By the way, we checked. Katie Jardine was at her parents' on Tuesday night. They reached Craig Miller Park Golf Course soon after Helen Robertson. The body was in a clump of trees near the road, and close to King's buildings, Logan noticed, which might be important. Robertson bent over the body as Logan and Grant arrived. She didn't look up until she finished her examination. It looks very like the last one, she said. Off the record, I'd say it's the same killer as the girl on Calton Hill. I may be able to confirm later. For a moment they all looked out across Edinburgh. Arthur's Seat to the left, Craig Miller Castle in front. Logan wondered who they were looking for, and why he was killing. Was it sex? Often it was. Or could it be money? Professional rivalry, perhaps? She took a breath and looked down at the body. She recognized Frances Stewart from Mrs. Dalwhinnie's photo, though her tongue stuck out and her lips were blue. Like Claire Rutherford, she had been young and pretty, slim, with very long red hair. She lay in a light green blouse and a long dark green skirt, her hair spread across the grass. Tell me, Logan said. She was strangled too, Robertson said. But this time it wasn't hands. Probably a scarf, belt, or something like that. I'll know more after I examine her. Time of death, about midnight, give or take half an hour. All right, Logan said. No scratches and no signs of sexual activity. Robertson added, though sex could still be a reason. True, Logan said. Always possible. I'll get you a report soon. Oh, and as before, her hands were tied at some point. Thanks, Helen. Logan turned to Grant. Search the area. Then we'll see Dr. Balfour again. They found Balfour in his office on West Mains Road. He seemed to be wearing the same clothes as before. As last time, Logan stood, not letting him look down at her, and once more she thought his eyes looked strange. I'm afraid we have more questions, Dr. Balfour, she said. Not a problem, Inspector, Balfour replied calmly from his desk. I'll help if I can. First, where were you last Tuesday evening? Then where were you between 10 and midnight on Wednesday? Logan asked. Let me think, Balfour said, brushing his hair back. On Tuesday I went to the usher hall. An Irish band was playing. Grant and Logan exchanged a look. Who went with you? Logan asked. No one, Balfour replied. I went alone. What did you do after? I went home, alone. Did you see Claire Rutherford there? No, I didn't know she liked Irish music. Then, realizing the point of the question, he raised his hand to his mouth. Oh God, was she there before she vanished? How terrible! You're sure you didn't see her? Grant asked. Balfour shook his head and looked sadly at his desk. And Wednesday night, between 10 and midnight? Logan asked. I was at Mather's with friends, Balfour said. Mather's was a bar in Edinburgh's West End. Until when? Logan asked. About 11:30, he answered, still staring down. Names and addresses, Logan said. He gave 3 names of other university teachers, and Grant noted them. "One more question," Logan said. "What time did you leave Henderson's party on Saturday?" Balfour looked up quickly. "What party?" "Henderson's party. You were there," Logan said flatly. "How do you know?" They gave no reply, just watched him. Realizing he would get no answer, Balfour said, "I left about 12:30. I don't like parties." "And afterwards?" Grant asked. "I went straight home. Do you know Frances Stewart?" Logan asked. "I know her name because she's in the department, but I don't know her. She works for Henderson. Why?" "So you didn't speak to her at the party?" "Not that I remember," Balfour said. Logan pulled out a photo of Fran Stewart and passed it to him. "Yes, that's her," he said after a glance. "But I didn't talk to her. Honestly, I don't even recall her being there." Logan took back the photo. "Why these questions?" Balfour asked. "Because Fran Stewart left that party and we found her body this morning," Logan said. "She's been murdered too." Logan looked hard at him. Balfour slowly shook his head, disbelief written on his face. Chapter 10. Crossing the City. Logan asked Grant to drive them back to London Road Police Station. She opened the car window and breathed deeply, even though the autumn air was cold. "There are some things we need to check," she said. "Find out where Balfour was sitting at the Usher Hall. I want to know if he could have seen Claire Rutherford there. Also, make sure whoever is questioning the other guests at Henderson's party asks if anyone noticed Balfour and Fran Stewart talking. And finally, get hold of Billy Marr again." "Billy Marr?" Grant asked, surprised. "Yes, I think he must have seen Claire Rutherford's body on Calton Hill," Logan said. "What I don't understand is why he believes he killed her." Grant smiled. He had almost forgotten Billy Marr, but he wasn't surprised Logan hadn't. She often followed unusual ideas. "And?" Logan went on as her thoughts raced. "Let's get a list of every researcher in computer science and their supervisors. I don't know what we'll find, but it could be useful." They parked at the station and got out. "And get some lunch," Logan added. "Then we'll go see Henderson. I've got more questions for Golden Boy." Grant smiled and left to do what she asked, while Logan went up to her office. For a while she just stood by the window. Across the road, a park was filled with children, playing as they always did, no matter if it was sunny, snowy, or raining. She watched them now, and wondered what sort of adults they would become, ones who worked and lived peacefully, or ones who stole, fought, and killed. She had worked murder cases for 4 years, and the job had not become easier. It was still hard for her to accept that one human being could end another's life. But it happened. She turned from the window to the large map of Edinburgh on the wall. She traced the important places in the case. Calton Hill, Craig Miller Park Golf Course. Where had the killer met these girls? In the same place? She picked up a pencil. Claire Rutherford had been walking from the Usher Hall back to her flat in Marchmont. Logan drew a line between the two. Fran Stewart had been walking from Hope Terrace back to Drummond Place. Logan drew that line too. Where did they cross? The meadows. But people didn't always walk in straight lines, she thought. She studied the map again, thinking about the different routes they might have taken. Both might have passed through the meadows. Could that have been where the killer approached them? It was as likely as anywhere. Her phone rang. It was Helen Robertson. "Exactly the same as on Calton Hill," Robertson said. "Same head injury, same tied hands, strangled, and again that roof insulation material on the clothes." "Okay, thanks," Logan said. She immediately picked up the phone again and called Tam MacDonald. "Tam, I need your help again," she said. "Of course, Jenny," he replied. "And if there's a story for me in the end, that's fine too." Logan smiled to herself. Tam, always the journalist. She gave him some of the new details and explained her thoughts. "What I'd like," she said, "is for you to talk to people at the university and find out what's going on in computer science. Both victims were doing research there." "Happy to, Jenny," Tam said. "But why not do it yourself? It's a murder case. You can ask anyone anything." "True," Logan admitted. "But I don't know much about computers, and you do. Also, people are less open with the police. But if a journalist is writing about how the university is leading the way in computer science, they might tell me things they wouldn't tell you." Tam finished. At 3 o'clock, Logan confirmed Henderson would be home. On the way to Hope Terrace, she explained her thoughts about the meadows to Grant. "It's fairly well lit," Grant said. "Not many dark spots where someone could knock a girl out, tie her up, and take her away." "No," Logan agreed. "I don't think that's what happened. I think the killer met them there and then took them elsewhere. Either he was very persuasive, or they knew him and weren't afraid." "Or her," Grant added. "Right," Logan said. "Now, Fran disappeared on a Saturday night. I don't think there would be any regular patterns of people crossing the meadows then. Just random groups going to pubs, clubs, restaurants. But Rutherford vanished on a Tuesday. That's different. Fewer people, more regular movements, people heading to and from work or weekly activities. So tomorrow, Tuesday, from 9:30 to midnight, I want everyone stopped in the meadows and asked if they saw anything unusual last week." "Okay," Grant said as they pulled up outside Henderson's house. "I'll get it organized for tomorrow night." Chapter 11. A Slow Investigation. "Ah, the beautiful Inspector Logan," Henderson said with a smile as he opened the door. He wore a pink shirt, light brown trousers with a leather belt, and brown shoes. His teeth shone white. Logan did not return the smile. "I said we'd be back if this turned into a murder case," she told him. "It has?" "Oh," Henderson said, his smile fading. He opened the door wider so Logan and Grant could come in. The living room looked the same as before, except for a copy of the Scottish Daily News lying on the table. Logan sat on the blue and yellow sofa. Henderson sat in an armchair nearby, while Grant stayed by the door. "Mr. Henderson," Logan began. "Please call me Kenneth," Henderson interrupted. Logan fixed her eyes on him. Becoming friendly with Henderson was the last thing she wanted. Keeping things professional was much better. "Mr. Henderson," she continued, "what time did your party begin?" Henderson hesitated, disappointed she had not used his first name. Logan noticed Grant smiling to himself. "About 11, Henderson said after coughing. "A group of us went to the pub first, then we came back here. A few more people arrived later. When did Fran Stewart arrive?" Logan asked. "About 9:30 at the pub, I think. Something like that," Henderson replied. "I can't be sure. And Balfour?" "About 11:30. I don't think he came to the pub. Usually he just shows up for a short while so people see him, then leaves. Like I said, he doesn't like parties. Did you see Balfour and Stewart speaking together?" "No, I don't think so," Henderson said, looking out of the window as he thought. "Not that I remember." "All right," Logan said. "Who did talk to her then?" Henderson spread his arms. "Come on, Inspector, I can't recall that. I know this is a murder case, and I'm very sorry about Fran, but I can't remember who spoke to whom on Saturday night." Logan stayed silent. Henderson went to the window, then turned back. At the pub, everyone was chatting to everyone else. We were standing, moving around. Back here I was busy making sure people had food and drinks. He sat down again. I spoke to Fran for 5 minutes at the pub about her research and for a couple of minutes here when she left. Otherwise, I hardly noticed her. Like I said, she was a bit too serious. Logan leaned back on the sofa and crossed one leg over the other, brushing her trousers with her hand. "I hear you bring in a lot of money for the university," she said. "Yes," Henderson replied, looking pleased. "You must make quite a lot yourself," Logan said, waving her hand toward the house. "Oh, no," Henderson said quickly, pointing at her. "People think I take money from the university, but that isn't true. This house and everything in it belonged to my parents. They've passed away, so it's mine now. I earn a university salary and a third of any profits from my research, as agreed with the university." He leaned forward. "And while we're at it, some people also claim I've stolen students' research and claimed it as my own. And that isn't true either?" Logan asked. "Of course not," Henderson said firmly. "Sometimes there are gray areas in research between supervisors and students, but I always try to be fair and honest." Logan said nothing. It was hard to tell if he was lying. She could sometimes sense it, but not always. "So what exactly are you and your team researching now?" she asked. "Computer security," Henderson said. "New methods to protect information, ways to stop hackers, people who break into systems to steal or find out things they shouldn't." Logan nodded, hoping Tam would soon report back on the university's research. "What about David Balfour? I hear he doesn't earn as much for the university as you." "Poor David," Henderson said, shaking his head. "He's a good man, but his wife was sick for years before she died. To be honest, the university isn't pleased with him now." Logan paused, then changed the subject. "What about last Wednesday between 10 and midnight? Where were you?" "Last Wednesday?" Henderson's eyes darted as he thought. "I was here, preparing classes for the next day." He suddenly realized why Logan asked. "Wait, was that when Claire Rutherford died?" His face reddened. "You can't think I had anything to do with it." He jumped up angry. "That's crazy! Anyone with you that night?" Logan asked, standing too. "No," Henderson said. Logan raised her eyebrows. "No, no one," he repeated more quietly. "But I had nothing to do with her death, I swear." Back at London Road, Logan and Grant sat in her office drinking tea and considering the case. A knock came at the door. Sergeant Graham entered, wearing jeans, a black t-shirt, and the same leather jacket Logan had seen on Calton Hill. "We've checked Balfour's seat at the usher hall," Graham said, holding papers he glanced at as he spoke. "The ticket office keeps records on computer. He and Rutherford sat in different areas and on different levels. She was high up in the cheap seats. He was downstairs near the back. They might have seen each other, but we can't be sure." He paused, but neither Logan nor Grant asked anything. "We also spoke to everyone at Henderson's party," he went on. "No results. Many people spoke to Fran Stewart and she spoke to others, but no one saw her with Balfour. Everyone described her as pleasant but serious. No one tried to flirt with her, and no one left with her. Several girls were in the hall when she went." "This isn't getting easier," Logan said. "Worse, actually," Graham replied. "We can't find Billy Marr." "What?" Logan and Grant said together, sitting forward. "He's not at home," Graham said. "He hasn't been there all day. We've checked places he usually goes, but no luck." Lines appeared on Logan's forehead as she thought. Then she shook her head and said, "Keep looking. Give his description to every officer on duty tonight. Let them know we need to find him." "Okay, madam," Graham said. "And we also have the list of researchers." He handed papers to both Logan and Grant. "I made copies for you." "Good," Logan said. "Go through them carefully. If you find anything important, tell me at once. If not, I'll see you in the morning." Grant and Graham left. Logan put the pile of papers on her desk and stared out of the window. Maybe tomorrow night in the meadows they would learn something useful. It was nearly a week since Claire Rutherford had gone missing. Now Rutherford was dead, and so was Frances Stewart. The longer the case dragged on, the smaller the chance of catching the killer. Chapter 12. An evening on the meadows. The Bruntsfield Hotel, close to the meadows, was a large and comfortable place on Bruntsfield Place, a couple of kilometers south of Princes Street. Its bar, called the King's Bar, was on the lower ground floor, with an entrance down a short flight of steps from the car park in front. At 8:30 on Tuesday evening, Logan and Grant were seated inside. They had spent the morning going through the piles of paperwork the case was producing. Most of it consisted of interview notes, people from the Usher Hall, friends of Claire Rutherford and Frances Stewart, and guests from Kenneth Henderson's party. The afternoon had been taken up with organizing the evening's operation, stopping everyone who passed through the meadows that night to see if they had been there the week before. Grant wore his usual grey trousers and blue jacket. Logan had on a dark grey suit with a peach blouse. She wore small earrings with a Scottish design, but no makeup. She rarely wore any, and never at work. In front of Grant was a glass of orange juice. Logan was drinking tomato juice. Having already talked through the case all day, they now spoke about Grant's garden, his nieces and nephews, and what he and his wife planned to do when he retired in 3 months' time. He was 60 and due to finish work at the end of the year. Logan drained her glass and checked her watch. "Okay," she said. "Let's see who remembers what they saw this time last week." The meadows had several paths lined with trees, and Melville Drive cut between it and another green space called Bruntsfield Links. Police officers stopped everyone, whether on foot or in cars. They showed photos of both Claire Rutherford and Frances Stewart, asking if anyone had seen them. They asked in particular if anyone had noticed Rutherford after the concert the previous Tuesday. Logan and Grant moved between groups of officers, keeping track of progress. As Logan approached one group, she recognized a voice. "I don't think I need to answer these questions. I've already spoken to Inspector Logan at length," it said. It was Kenneth Henderson. He wore a stylish brown leather coat. He hadn't seen Logan yet, but turned when he heard her voice. "I think you'll find you do need to answer, Mr. Henderson," she said. "We discussed Wednesday evening, yes, but not Tuesday. Where were you then?" Henderson looked at her. "Inspector, I always play squash on Tuesday evenings at the Lothian Squash Club on Coates Crescent." "Until when?" Logan asked. "It depends," Henderson said. "What time did you leave last week?" He thought for a moment. "I stayed for a drink afterwards. I'd say I left around 10:30. And you walked home this way, along Lothian Road, past the Usher Hall, and then across the meadows?" "Yes," Henderson said. "That's my usual route." "Did you see Claire Rutherford on your way home?" Logan asked. A nearby officer held out a photo of Rutherford, but Henderson waved it aside. "I know what she looks like," he said sharply, then corrected himself more softly. "Looked like?" He glanced back at Logan. "No, I didn't see her." Logan studied him silently. He had passed the Usher Hall at roughly the time Rutherford disappeared. He might have been at home when she died, but he might not. Frances Stewart had vanished after leaving his party. He clearly had opportunity. But why would he have killed them? His relationship seemed important to him. Had he asked them out and been rejected? It didn't seem likely. He had hinted at interest in Logan, but wasn't upset when she didn't respond. Was it about university research? Was that more believable? She could bring him to London Road for questioning now, or she could make him wait. She chose to let him sweat. "Mr. Henderson," she said, "you must admit it looks strange. Francis Stewart disappeared after your party, and Claire Rutherford vanished when you were nearby. I'd like you to drop into London Road Police Station tomorrow for another talk." Henderson drew in a deep breath. "At whatever time suits you." Logan added, "Let's say 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon." Then she turned and walked on to the next group of officers. The questioning went on through the evening, but no new information came. At 12:30, Logan walked over to a group gathered on Melville Drive. She planned to thank the officers for giving up their evening and to tell them they could go home. But as she reached them, she saw a familiar face. "It's Katie Jardine, isn't it?" she asked. "Oh, Inspector Logan. Hello," Jardine replied. Her hair looked especially untidy that night. "How are you? Have you made any progress with the investigation?" "Not yet, but we're still working on it," Logan said, before noticing the girl beside her. Jardine caught her look. "This is Karen," she said. "Karen Ramsey, a friend of mine." Logan thought Ramsey must be at least 185 centimeters tall, broad-shouldered too. She seemed older than Jardine, perhaps in her late 20s. But what stood out most was her long blonde hair and strikingly beautiful face. Logan smiled at Ramsey, then turned back to Jardine. "Heading home?" "Yes," Jardine answered. "We've just been to the cinema, stopped for a drink on the way back." As she spoke, she looked up at Ramsey. "I see," Logan said, now addressing Ramsey. "Are you a research student at the university too?" "Yes, I also work there part-time," Ramsey added. Her voice was deep, with a West Coast accent. She looked Logan directly in the eye, a look that made Logan feel oddly uncomfortable, as if she shouldn't be questioning her. "Oh, really?" Logan said, encouraging her to go on. The uneasy feeling didn't stop her questions. In fact, it made her more curious. "Karen teaches at the university," Katie explained. Logan noticed Grant paying more attention now. "Just a few hours weekly," Ramsey said. "I'm mainly doing research for a PhD." "You want to be a doctor?" Logan asked. "Yes," Ramsey replied. "A doctor of computer science." "Oh," Logan said. "So you're in the computer department?" "Yes," Ramsey confirmed. "Right," Logan said thoughtfully. "And what is your research about?" Ramsey glanced at Jardine, then back at Logan with a smile. "How much do you know about computers, Inspector?" "Not much," Logan admitted. "But I wondered if your work had any link to what Claire Rutherford and Francis Stewart were studying." Ramsey's stare felt almost physical to Logan. "Not really," Ramsey said. "I only knew a little about their projects. People don't usually talk much about their research until it's finished." "Professional rivalry?" Logan asked. "Something like that," Ramsey said, still staring. "Ideas do get stolen sometimes. That's why researchers keep quiet about their work." "I suppose you knew Claire Rutherford, since she lived with Ms. Jardine." "Of course," Ramsey said. "You weren't around here a week ago, were you?" Logan asked, watching her closely. "Actually, yes," Ramsey said. "On Tuesday evenings, I usually work at the Bruntsfield Hotel restaurant. I've got a week off now, which is why I'm not there tonight. I was probably coming home about this time last week." Again, Logan felt uneasy under her direct look. "And did you see Claire on your way home?" Logan asked. "I'm afraid not," Ramsey replied. Logan checked her watch. "All right, thanks for your help. You'd better get home." Thanks, and good luck with the case, Jardine said as the two walked off toward Marchmont. Logan watched them go, then turned to Grant. What did you think of Karen Ramsey? She's tall, Grant said with a smile. You got interested when the university was mentioned, though. Logan said seriously. Yes, Grant admitted. When she said the computer department again. But I can't see why it matters. Nor can I, Logan said, running her fingers through her hair. And she freely told us she was here last week. I just found her a bit. Well, I can't explain. Maybe it has nothing to do with the case. Strange that she's working, Grant said. Not really, Logan replied. Students often work to get through university. Even PhD students. A bit of teaching, a bit of waitressing, quite normal. Logan looked around the meadows. At that late hour, very few people were still about. Right, she said. I think we're finished here. We haven't learned anything new. Send everyone home and I'll see you in the morning. Chapter 13. Computer Technology. Wednesday morning was clear and sunny, but the good weather did nothing to improve Logan's mood. She wore a blue-green scarf that Tam had given her the year before, hoping it might cheer her a little. While eating breakfast, she thought over the events of the past 9 days. The investigation felt stuck. She still didn't know where the girls had been killed or why. The 3 hours in the meadows the previous evening had felt like a waste. Henderson was due in for questioning, but even though Logan disliked him, she doubted he was the killer. Karen Ramsey was a new and puzzling figure in the case, and Logan knew she needed to learn more about the tall woman from the West Coast. But could Ramsey really have murdered 2 young women? It seemed unlikely. Logan shook her head to clear her thoughts. When she reached the police station, Tam MacDonald was already waiting in her office. He stood, kissed her lightly on the cheek, and could see at once she wasn't in the best of moods. Don't ask, she said, noticing his look, but not wanting to discuss her feelings. Just tell me what you found out. She hung her jacket over her chair and sat at her desk. They were very cooperative at the university once they knew what I was writing about. Tam began. They were especially keen when they heard I wouldn't mention dead women in the article. Logan smiled slightly. Tam always had a way of putting things that amused her. I spent a couple of hours yesterday with the head of computer science. Tam continued. Right now, the department is focused on 3 main areas. One is computer languages, the special codes that make machines work. Another is security, how to stop people breaking into systems. And the third is wireless technology. Tell me more about that, Logan said. Balfour brought it up, and it was also Claire Rutherford's field. Well, as it is now, I can send information from my computer to yours, but the machines must be linked, either by cables or through the internet. Wireless technology means I could set my computer next to yours and, with the right program, they could talk to each other without being connected. I see, Logan said. Don't ask me exactly how it works, Tam added. I know something about computers, but not that much. Anyway, he went on, the university has done really well with its research into languages and security. Companies have used it, and it's made the university a lot of money. And wireless technology? Logan asked. That, too, has been an important line of research, at least until recently. But the head of department suggested that unless someone comes up with fresh ideas or a new approach soon, they may scale it back, at least for a while. That's interesting, Logan said, leaning back in her chair, wondering how Balfour would feel about that. Did he need a new direction so badly he might kill for it? After a pause, she asked, were Rutherford's and Stewart's projects at all similar? I thought you'd ask that, Tam replied. And since I'm not police, it was a tricky thing to ask without looking too curious. But after I spoke to the head, he asked one of his researchers, a woman named Karen Ramsey, to show me around the department. Karen Ramsey? Logan repeated. Yes, do you know her? I met her yesterday too, Logan said. Go on. Well, since she works so closely with the head, she knows what everyone in the department is doing. So I casually mentioned the murders and asked if the two girls were researching similar topics. Apparently not. They were working under different supervisors in separate fields. That's interesting. That's pretty much what she told me too, said Logan. I wonder if it's true. She looked out of the window at the park across the road and drifted into thought. Tam stayed quiet for a moment before clearing his throat. I'd better get to work then, he said. Logan turned suddenly. Oh, sorry, Tam, I was just thinking. He studied her carefully. Are you all right, Jenny? Not really, she admitted. The case is more than a week old, and we're still stuck. It's starting to get me down. Tam placed a hand on her shoulder. But you never know when things might turn around, he said. Logan gave him a small smile as he left. A few minutes later, just after 10:30, Logan phoned to confirm that Katie Jardine would be at home. Then she picked up her jacket and left her office. On her way out, she stopped by Sergeant Grant's desk. We need to know more about Karen Ramsey, the woman we met last night, she told him. See what you can find before lunch. I'm going to talk to Katie Jardine. This afternoon I'll be back to speak with Henderson. She could have driven to Marchmont Road, but as she stepped into the fresh air, she noticed the sun was still shining. A good walk might clear her head and give her a new perspective on the case, she thought. The streets were crowded with shoppers enjoying the September sunshine. Edinburgh looked at its best. Half an hour later, Logan passed some of the university buildings. Unlike the busy shopping streets, this area was quiet, with few people around. She heard a car slow beside her, and a familiar voice called out, If you're heading to Marchmont, I can give you a lift. Chapter 14. Where is Inspector Logan? Kenneth Henderson arrived at London Road Police Station right at 4 o'clock. The front desk informed Sergeant Grant, who went to find Logan. But her office was empty, looking just as it had that morning. Grant asked in the nearby offices, but no one had seen her since before lunch. Returning to her office, he frowned. It was unusual for Logan to be late without telling him. He picked up the phone on her desk and called her mobile, but it was switched off. That was odd. Looking through the papers on her desk, he found Katie Jardine's number and dialed. Hello, Ms. Jardine? Grant asked. Yes, Jardine replied. This is Sergeant Grant, Edinburgh Police. I was wondering if Inspector Logan was still with you. I'm sorry, Sergeant. What do you mean, still with me? She never came. I thought maybe she'd changed her mind. Oh, Grant said, his concern growing. She must have. Thank you anyway. Sorry to bother you. He hung up slowly and stood thinking. What was Logan doing? In 4 years of working with her, he knew she never went off alone without saying. She always told him her plans, just as she had that morning. He checked his watch. She had been gone 5 or 6 hours. Just then Sergeant Graham came in. Oh, Graham said, surprised to see him. I was looking for the inspector. So was I, Grant replied, explaining the situation. Where else could she be? Graham asked. What was she working on? She told me to look into Karen Ramsey, Jardine's friend we met the other night, Grant said, glancing at Logan's list of numbers as another idea came to him. He phoned Tam MacDonald. Tam answered at once. Grant explained the situation again. She didn't tell me what she planned, Tam said. But yes, she was interested in Karen Ramsey. I found out Ramsey is one of the few in computer science who knows what all the researchers are doing. Jenny thought that was interesting. Okay, thanks anyway, Grant said. I'm sure there's a simple explanation. It's too early to panic. But his tone didn't match his words. I hope you're right, Tam said. But please ask her to call me when she turns up, just so I know she's safe. Of course. Grant hung up slowly, then turned to Graham. Henderson's here for questioning. Logan wanted to see him this afternoon. Let's ask him about Ramsey. 5 minutes later, Grant, Graham, and Henderson sat in an interview room. A cassette recorder on the desk captured everything. Mr. Henderson, Grant began. As the head of department's assistant, Miss Ramsey would know something about each researcher's work. That's right, Henderson said. We know both murdered women worked in computer science. Grant continued. And we know they both knew Karen Ramsey. We're trying to decide how important that is. Henderson thought for a moment. I can't see why it would matter unless... Yes? Grant and Graham asked together. Well, it's unlikely, Henderson said. But if she noticed how their research could be combined in some way others hadn't, then maybe. He opened his arms. What? Graham asked impatiently. It would depend, Henderson said. Maybe putting their work together could lead to a big money-making opportunity. It might even make her famous. There was a short silence before Grant spoke. Mr. Henderson, I'd like you to check if there could be any link between the two women's projects. Could you do that? Certainly, Henderson said. I'll ask my boss to call you if he needs to explain further. No problem, Grant said. Once Henderson had gone, Grant turned to Graham. Call the university, find out where Ramsey is, then meet me in the car park. We need to talk to her. Grant went back to his office for his jacket. As he walked down to the car park, he worried about Logan. She was an excellent officer, clever, and a strong detective. She could look after herself. Grant had no children, but if he had, he would have wanted a daughter like her. He knew police work could be dangerous, but he hoped she was safe. Grant and Graham reached the car park at the same moment. Ramsey's not at the university, Graham said. I've got her home address, Mayfield Gardens. He started the engine and pulled out onto London Road. Grant switched on the blue light. He didn't want to lose time in traffic. Chapter 15. Grant and Graham investigate. Jenny Logan woke in darkness. Her head throbbed badly, and her wrists were sore. She tried to move them, but couldn't. They were tied behind her back. Was it night or day? And where was she? She turned her head and saw faint light above. Slowly her eyes adjusted, and she realized she was in the roof space of a building. It looked old, with thin beams of light shining through tiny gaps in the roof. If she could see daylight, then it must be daytime. She wondered if it was still Wednesday. Beneath her were long wooden beams running in one direction across the roof floor. Between them was the same type of roof insulation Helen Robertson had described, used to keep warmth in buildings. Logan couldn't tell if it was orange, but she suspected it was. This must have been where the two murdered women had been held. Was she about to become the third victim found in one of Edinburgh's parks? Maybe it hadn't been wise to accept a ride from someone involved in a murder inquiry. But at the time, it had seemed like a good chance to talk. Now it didn't matter. She had to focus on the present. She needed to escape, quickly. She tried to open her mouth, but parcel tape was stuck across it. She made a sound, but it was faint. At least her legs were free. She started moving them to push herself onto her knees. A police car stopped outside a tall block in Mayfield Gardens. Grant and Graham hurried inside. On the left was a row of mailboxes with names and flat numbers. "Here," Graham said, pointing at the last box. "Flat 8, top floor." There was no lift, so they ran up the stairs. Graham went first. Grant, still fit at 60, followed close behind. At the top they reached flats 7 and 8, number 7 at the back, 8 at the front. At the door, Grant said, "I'll do the talking. You watch for anything unusual. If you get a chance, look around." Graham nodded. Grant knocked firmly. After a few moments, the door opened. "I'm Sergeant Grant," he said, showing his ID. "We met the other night at the meadows. This is Sergeant Graham. Could we come in and ask a few questions?" "Of course," Karen Ramsey said, opening the door wide. A short hall led left into a large living room. On the right were 2 closed doors, and straight ahead, an open kitchen. Ramsey shut the door and followed them into the living room. "Please sit down," she said. They sat, both looking carefully around. There was a round dining table stacked with books and 4 chairs, a sofa and armchairs covered in dark blue fabric, bookshelves full of computing texts, and a desk with a computer. Another door looked like it led to a cupboard. A brown jacket hung on one chair, and over another was a blue-green scarf. "Ms. Ramsey," Grant began, "perhaps you could tell us a little about the research Claire Rutherford and Francis Stewart were." The doorbell rang. "Excuse me," Ramsey said, leaving to answer it. At once Graham stood and began moving quietly around. He peered into the kitchen. They heard voices at the door, then Ramsey saying, "Well, the police are here. Sergeant Grant and I can't recall the other one's name." "Well, come in and ask them if you like." The door closed. Ramsey returned with Tam MacDonald behind her. "Sorry to interrupt, Sergeant Grant," Tam said, "but I wanted to ask Ms. Ramsey a few questions. I just wanted to know how long—" He suddenly stopped, his eyes fixed on the scarf draped over a dining chair. "That's Jenny's," he said. Chapter 16, Catching a Murderer. In the roof space, Jenny Logan had managed to get her legs under her. Her eyes now adjusted to the darkness. She noticed a thin line of light around what looked like a door. Close to it was a small area with a proper floor. She stood carefully and began moving across towards it. Her legs were weak and shaky, and it was hard to balance with her hands tied behind her back. But by keeping close to the wall, she slowly made her way to the door. She could hear low voices beyond it. Logan held her breath and listened. There were both male and female voices, though she couldn't make out the words. Standing gave her strength again, and she realized she had to decide. Stay hidden and wait, or try to break through the door. Normally Logan chose action. She stepped back 3 paces, crouching where the roof sloped low. Taking a deep breath, she ran forward in 3 short steps and threw her shoulder into the door. In the dark, she hadn't been able to check the door properly. If she had, she would have seen that although the wood was thick and solid, the lock was small, weak, and easy to break. Her shoulder hit hard, and the door burst open, straight into Karen Ramsey's living room. At the very moment Tam MacDonald noticed the blue-green scarf on the back of a chair. Logan stumbled into the room, her hands still tied, parcel tape over her mouth, her clothes and hair covered with dust from the roof. Karen Ramsey had been tense ever since Grant and Graham had arrived. She reacted first. Tam MacDonald stood between her and the front door. She drove her elbow sharply into his stomach. With a cry, the air left his lungs, and clutching himself, he dropped to his knees and then fell sideways. Ramsey darted for the door. Graham, standing near the kitchen, moved quickly. Leaping over MacDonald, he caught Ramsay just as she pulled the door open. Sometimes police officers try to restrain people with the least force possible. Graham decided this was not one of those times. Ramsay was tall and powerful. He grabbed a fistful of her long blonde hair and yanked it back. Her head jerked, her hands flew from the door, and she screamed. She tried to twist, arms clawing like talons, but Graham was ready. He kicked sideways into her knee. Her legs collapsed, and she fell. Graham went down with her, still gripping her hair, his other hand seizing one arm. She struggled fiercely, but he twisted her arm sharply, released her hair, drove his knee into her back, and forced her wrist up behind her shoulders. Ramsay cried out in pain. "Don't move," Graham ordered, breathing hard, pressing her wrist firmly to keep her down. Across the room, Grant realized he couldn't help much in the fight. Instead, he bent to Logan, carefully tearing the tape from her mouth and untying her hands. Tam MacDonald, now propped against the kitchen wall, was still gasping for air. With her wrists free at last, Logan rose and hurried to Tam. "You all right, Tam?" she asked, kneeling beside him and touching his shoulder, looking into his eyes. He nodded, still too breathless to answer. Logan stood, brushing dust from her clothes, and turned to Sergeant Graham. "Well done, Sergeant," she said. "Take her down to London Road with Sergeant Grant. I'll join you soon." Then she reached out a hand to help Tam back onto his feet. Chapter 17. What Billy Marr Really Did. The next morning, Logan and Grant sat in Logan's office on the second floor. Red marks still showed around Logan's wrists where she had been tied. A knock came at the door, and Helen Robertson walked in. "Hi, Jenny. I heard you were back already," she said. "How are you?" "Not too bad, thanks," Logan replied. "I was just passing," Robertson went on, "and thought you'd want to know the insulation we found on both murdered women matches the material from Karen Ramsay's roof space." "Good," said Logan. "That helps confirm we've got the right person, and she'll go to prison." "Even better," Robertson added. "They found more of the same material in Ramsay's flat roof space, and it's an exact match with Fran Stewart's skirt." "Excellent," said Logan. "So what was it really about?" Robertson asked. "Why did she do it?" Logan leaned back in her chair with her coffee. "It seems it was connected to research in the computer science department," she explained. "I don't fully understand it, but Kenneth Henderson went over the basics. 2 key areas at the universities were wireless technology and computer security. One big problem with wireless is keeping it safe. For example, with the right tools, someone could park outside your office, connect to your computer, and steal your files without you knowing. Why don't computer scientists just work together to solve it?" Robertson asked. "Apparently they worry about others stealing their ideas," Logan said. "So they keep their work very secret. Still, a few people at the university knew what everyone was doing, and Karen Ramsay was one of them." Robertson finished. "Exactly," said Logan. She realized how 2 different projects could be combined to create a solution, an idea that could earn her a PhD and make her rich. But the problem was, the real work belonged to the 2 women. "So she killed them," Robertson said. "Right," Logan agreed. She turned to Grant to finish the explanation. "She knew both women," Grant said, "so it wasn't hard to offer them a lift. She probably followed, waiting for the right chance. Late at night, they would likely accept a ride from someone familiar. After that, it was simple." The room went silent as they thought about Ramsay's actions. Then came another knock. Sergeant Graham looked in. "Sorry to interrupt, but Do you still want to see Billy Marr? He's just been brought in." To Grant's surprise, Logan said, "Yes, bring him up." "I'll go," said Robertson. "No, Helen, stay. Sit down," Logan told her, pointing to a chair. Robertson sat, looking puzzled. She wasn't usually part of interviews. A few minutes later, Graham brought Billy Marr in. "Sit down, Billy," Logan said. "Now tell me exactly what happened 2 weeks ago when you found the woman's body on Calton Hill." Marr started to speak, but Logan cut him off. "And no, don't tell me you killed her. We know who did, and it wasn't you. Just describe what you saw and did." "Well, I was in the park that night, or early morning, Thursday," he began. "Like I told you before?" "What time?" Logan asked. "About 2 or 3, I think. I'd eaten at an Indian place, had a few drinks, and was sitting by the wall near the road. I fell asleep. When I woke up, there was someone sitting further along the wall. I thought she was staring at me. I sat, and so did she. I told her to stop watching me, but she didn't." Marr's voice grew louder. "Was that a problem?" Logan asked. "Of course," Marr said. "I didn't like her staring." "So what did you do?" Logan pressed. "I ran at her. I was really angry. And then? I put my hands on her throat. I was so mad," Marr said. "I didn't mean to kill her, but I did. She made this awful sound. I let go and stepped back, but it was too late. She fell over. She was dead. Really, I didn't mean it. It just happened." Logan glanced at Robertson. "Billy," Robertson said gently, waiting until he looked at her. "She was already dead when you found her. I'm absolutely certain of it. But she made that horrible dying sound when I grabbed her," Marr insisted. Robertson thought, then explained, "Billy, dead bodies can make strange noises. They can do odd things. Sometimes they even sit up. If you don't know, it's frightening." Marr was silent for a while. "So you mean she could have made the noise even if she was already dead?" he asked at last. "Yes," Robertson said. He thought longer, then looked at Logan. "Thank you. I really believed I killed her. I thought it was my fault. I never understood why you wouldn't believe me." "I understand now, Billy," Logan said. "You can go. Sergeant Grant will take you out." Grant led Marr from the office, and Robertson followed, shutting the door behind her. Logan stood, stretched, and looked out at the park beyond her window. Another knock came. The door opened, and Tam appeared, his red hair and glasses catching the light. "Hi, Jenny," he said, stepping in and closing the door. "Tam." He held her tightly for a moment, then stepped back, still holding her hands as he looked her over. "How are you?" he asked. "Okay," she nodded. "I was worried," he admitted. Logan looked out the window. "So was I. I don't suppose it's worth asking you to change jobs," he said. Logan smiled at him. "What do you think?" "I think it means too much to you. You're too good at it, and too lucky," he said. Logan hugged him close again. "You're absolutely right, especially about the lucky part." A week later, the case was officially closed. Karen Ramsey had been charged with 2 murders and the attempted killing of Inspector Jenny Logan. The evidence was strong, and there was no doubt she would spend many years in prison. Life at London Road Police Station slowly returned to normal. Reports were written, papers filed, and other cases demanded attention. But for Logan, the memory of those long hours tied in the dark roof space would not fade quickly. She had been close to death, closer than ever before. Sergeant Grant continued his work with calm efficiency, though he never said much about how worried he had been. Helen Robertson joked with Logan when they next met, but her eyes showed the relief she felt that Jenny was still alive. Tam MacDonald stayed close by, half teasing, half protective. "One day," he told her, "you'll have a quiet case with no danger at all." Logan laughed, but she knew he didn't really believe it. Neither did she. Looking out of her office window at the park, Logan reflected that Edinburgh would always have its share of crime. There would always be someone ready to steal, hurt, or even kill. And there would always be work for people like her. She smiled faintly, pulled her jacket from the back of her chair, and headed out. Another day, another case. Thank you for listening to Murder Among Students. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more English stories filled with drama, suspense, and emotion. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter in our journey of learning through stories.